Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, September 3rd. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Oregon game is in 8 days. The game against Michigan in 85 days. Buckeyes, it is weird to not say Minnesota at the start of the show. I've been saying Minnesota for like 9 months. But the Minnesota game is over. Ohio State won it. They won 45-31 on Thursday night in Minneapolis. I'm joined by Buckeye Scoop's Kevin. Kevin Noon. He's the new guy. We'll learn his name.
The rookie.
We'll learn his name eventually. He's Kevin Noon. He is now a proud member of the Buckeye Scoop team. Kevin, I guess let's start with the quarterback play. That's what everyone wants to talk about. At least that's of the good news. That's what everyone wants to talk about. C.J. Stroud came in, looked like a first-time starter first time playing on the road, first time playing in front of a crowd. I mean, all of the first times that he had on Thursday night. And it looked like, oh man, this is not going great. And then after the half, it all kind of fell into place. So do you come away from that game more or less concerned about C.J. Stroud moving forward heading into like the Oregon game?
Well, I think you look at his numbers. I mean, his numbers fall in line with a lot of first-time starts for Ohio State quarterbacks. But that's also, remember, he got a lot of yardage on the Trevian Henderson touchdown. Mm-hmm. He had some stat stuffers going on there that, really kind of righted the numbers. We look at the first half, a couple of airmails, a couple of wrong reads. He's shorter to throw. I mean, everything really kind of settled down in the second half. I mean, obviously on Twitter, especially in Ohio, I'm sure that Kyle McCord, Quinn Ewers, all of that's trending out there on social. People are ready, they're ready for the devil they don't know rather than the devil that they do know, and nobody really knows C.J. Stroud at this point, but it's very quick to try and move on to the next thing. It's going to be interesting when they play Oregon, when they have to sit there and try and contain Kayvon Thibodeau on the line, who could be a number one overall pick in the draft. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to have to be addressed at that point. I still give C.J. Stroud somewhere between an incomplete because, I don't know enough about what I saw at this point. But, there certainly were some of the, I saw some yips, to use a golfing term, some yips involved there. But I also saw some pretty decent plays. But, he looked like a guy making his first start.
Yeah, you could see that first he had Garrett Wilson. I think it was on the first drive. He had Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson had like broken open, and it was like, well, there's 6 points. And he just, you could see him look and go, oh my gosh, I'm about to throw a touchdown. I'm so excited. And then he threw it, and it was like, well, that was too much mustard on that one. That just overshot him. And if he'd hit him in stride, it would have been a touchdown. He overshot. He didn't overshoot him by 10 yards, but he overshot him by a yard and a half, 2 yards, and that's enough. So yeah, it was a little bit of a rough start. There were times that it looked like, I don't know how mentally how he's doing right now. How is he questioning himself? Is he doubting himself? It's your first time having to do this stuff at this level. If it's not going right, like it's reasonable to question yourself. And then, but as soon as it started looking like it was going okay again, it seemed like it just kind of clicked in for him. And then, you do have the luxury of having Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson out there. Those are some pretty nice security blankets to be able to work with.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that I don't know if I want to say I'm surprised because of just how close the game was for much of it, but I would have thought we would have seen a little bit more of a rotation in terms of Marvin Harrison potentially. It generally was 2, 5, 11. They rotated on the tight ends. I mean, we saw Ruckert a little bit early. We certainly saw Cade Stover. For half a second, we saw G. Scott. But it is a great security blanket knowing that you have 2, 5, and 11, because we're going to talk about Chris Olave 2 and Garrett Wilson 5, but let's not leave Jackson Smith and Jigba out of there too as 11. I mean, it's certainly, I don't want to say that they're training wheels for somebody learning to ride a bike, but it's certainly, it's going out there and having somebody holding onto the back of the bike, making sure that you're not falling over, even though Ohio State certainly seemed to be losing its balance at times with this game.
And, what was interesting to me was you had very little wide receiver rotation, which is a spot that I thought you would see those other, I thought you'd see all 6 guys playing in the first half and playing extended snaps in the first half. But then at running back, it was the first drive, Mayan Williams goes 70 whatever yards for that touchdown. And then he doesn't play for 2 more drives because then, well, the second drive was Master Teague's drive, and then there was the Travion Henderson played in the third drive, and so Mayan Williams is sitting for like an hour or whatever it was of real time after having this like explosive opening drive. I was really surprised. To me, that's one of those, like, you can come in with a plan, but you kind of also got to ride the hot hand there. That was really surprising to me, and I don't know, if there's political considerations to go into that, or if they just decided, we have to know we have to know what we have. That's the most important thing in the first half, and then we'll figure it out later. But that was so strange to me that you'd have a guy bust a 77-yard run and then not play for, like an hour.
I take it back to the 2014 game against Navy when they had that deep running back room, and that was the season opener, and Zeke Elliott wasn't Zeke Elliott yet, and he got a couple carries. Rod Smith was still on the team. He got a couple carries. Curtis Samuel, Jalen Marshall. They didn't know necessarily what it was that they had at that point. They didn't know what the right pieces were. I don't want to talk about what happened week 2, in that season, but I'll talk about what happened at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. They identified their dude, and they were able to go, and they won the whole damn thing at that point. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the mindset is there, because we did see a lot of rotating. We certainly were given the lip service to, if we're traveling you, we're playing you. Everybody was out there short of the bus driver, and we saw a lot of guys in like extra jerseys, different numbers. So for all we know, that might not have been Donovan Jackson out there and lining up with whatever that number was. That could have been the bus driver.
Yeah, that was it was surprising to me that you had not only Mayan Williams having that long run and then not playing, but Travion Henderson had 3 touches for 85 yards, long touchdown, and the passing game, 10 rushes of 10 and 5 yards, and that was it. It was 3 touches all night. And you're kind of looking at that, and it kind of takes you back to like the 2016 Penn State game where Curtis Samuel, I think, had 2 carries for 81 yards or something, and it was like, it seems like you would want to feed him more and see, because it wasn't like the offense was like exploding that night. Tonight, that was all fine. Like there was not a shortage of big plays on the offense. So that that's not quite the same concerns as 2016. But yeah, that was very interesting to me. I'll be real intrigued to see how much that changes next week against Oregon. I get the sense, if they're figuring out who their dudes are, I have a sense that I could tell them who, Yeah. I think there are a couple dudes in that room, and I think they probably know who they are, and I feel like my answer on that hasn't changed from preseason to now, even with 1 game of data now. Like, yeah, the 2 guys who I thought would be your big play guys or your best options there, yes, I still think they are the best the best options there. So it'll be interesting to see how much that changes next week. Something else that's going to be interesting to see, the defense wasn't great.
No.
The defense had some issues, and some of that can be chalked up to Seven Banks, Cam Brown not being there, Josh Proctor getting hurt in the third quarter. You had some issues in the back end, but they didn't get gashed on passing, really. It wasn't like they gave up 900 yards passing. They just got kind of battered in the running game, and it wasn't like Mo Ibrahim, I think, had 163 yards, and that was not like a number that was skewed by an 80-yard touchdown. It was just a lot of 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, and when they needed 3, 3rd and 3, they got 3. Yeah. When they needed, it was 3rd and 2, they got their 2. They could kind of do what they needed to do, and they stayed ahead of they stayed on schedule a lot against that Ohio State defense. How big a concern is that to you? That this was not an Oregon level team in terms of talent on offense. For them to have done that to the Ohio State defense, how big of a concern is that to you moving into next week?
Yeah, I was going to say they even when they did get them off schedule, then they would pick up 7 on 2nd down, and then they would be able to convert on 3rd down. There was that 4th down conversion that they had, that 4th and maybe a football that they, and it wasn't they didn't get 2 or 3 there. They broke off that 50-some yard run. One thing I'll say about Minnesota is Minnesota had a lot of returning starters. Yes, they did go into the portal. They got Niles Pickney from Clemson. They got the linebacker Gibbons from Abilene Christian. But they had a lot of returning guys. I don't think Oregon has that as many returning guys, and they're missing guys in certain key positions. But I don't care who you're playing. You have to be concerned about Ohio State not being able to apply pressure when it needed to, not being able to get the opposing team off of the field. I mean, it's the Minnesota, the first drive. I mean, okay, they had to punt, but it took forever. I mean, it took forever, and they got 36 yards. I mean, Oregon's going to be very different. I mean, Marcus Mariota's not walking through that door. It's not that offense there, but it's still Oregon, and they've got helmets and shoulder pads too. So you do have to have some concerns there. They're going to. I expect, after they have Champions Dinner, after they, tend to their bumps and bruises and everything, I think they're going to have some tough practices. Fortunately for Ohio State, they played their game on Thursday. They're going to get a little bit of extra time. Let's not make it sound like they're getting an extra week. They're just getting a couple extra days, but they need to do a full examination on the defense.
And they'll get a chance to watch Oregon on Saturday against Fresno State. So that'll be a little bit of, they can do a little bit of advanced scouting. They've got an extra day or so to heal up, which is always helpful. They're also playing a game at a normal time for them, and they're not playing at 9 a.m. body clock time. That will help for them as well. But, looking at tonight's results, at the results for Thursday night at Minnesota, what needs to be fixed? What is the most important thing that needs to change in your mind going into that Minnesota game? Like, is there a position is it you have to get Seven Banks back, you have to get Cam Brown back? Is it that the defensive line has to get a better pass rush? What has to change? Like, what is the biggest thing that you would, if I told you this thing has changed significantly for the better for Ohio State, that in your mind it makes the biggest difference against Oregon?
I mean, because it all matters. It all matters. And as you were going through that, I was just going to say yes. But since you're really making me focus on the one. The thing is that if you just look at football, if you sit there and you can affect the quarterback and you can get that pass rush, everything else is fixed. I don't want to say fixed, but it's better. Yes, you want to have Cam Brown. Yes, you want to have Seven Banks. There's seems to be a little bit of a drop off from Josh Proctor at the safety position. I think that we saw the situation of where Cody Simon played limited amount. But if you can get a point of where Zach Harrison and Tyreek Smith and guys like that are able to get in and force the quarterback to get rid of the ball half a second earlier, 0.2 of a second earlier, are hitting him, are sacking him, it sure makes everything else a lot simpler. So it's probably not just something that's specific to Ohio State and saying, well, it's an Ohio State thing. I think if anybody can sit there and see a dramatic improvement in their pass rush, they're going to see their fortunes, improve.
Yeah, and you go back to the game on Thursday night, Minnesota was pretty methodical moving down the field for the most part, but the game completely swung on the one time Zach Harrison got home. He got home, knocks the ball out of Tanner Morgan's hands, Haskell Garrett scoops it up, runs it back for a touchdown. All of a sudden, Ohio State, instead of Minnesota having the ball with a chance to take the lead, all of a sudden, boom, Ohio State's got a 2-score lead. And the game, that completely changed the complexion of that game. So, yeah, if you can get a game-changing play like that next week against Oregon, that's going to help your chances quite a bit.
Absolutely.
So that's going to do it for tonight. We have a lot of coverage at BuckeyeScoop.com. Lots of Mark Gifler had his 10, sort of immediate reactions to the game. That's always one of my favorite pieces. That was great. We have a live post-game episode of Buckeye Weekly with Tony Grodeman and I, breaking down this stuff in a lot more detail. You can find that on YouTube. You can find that on your podcast platform of choice.
Don't forget the Juicy Lucy.
We have, we took a trip to the legendary Matt's Bar in Minneapolis before the game to sample the famous Juicy Lucy hamburger, which it lived up to the hype. I'll spoil that. That's on our YouTube channel as well. So we're going to just do some kind of fun road trip stuff this year as well. So lots of fun stuff there, but also our Ask the Insiders board. The last time I saw the game thread, it was just like 43 pages in or something. It was just crazy. There is a ton of interest, obviously, in this year's team, a ton of excitement around this year's team. and maybe nowhere more than on the Ask the Insider Sport at BuckeyeScoop.com. So consider becoming a member today. There's going to be a whole lot to talk about between now and the Oregon game, so that's going to be a good place to do it. Also, make sure to check out all of our great podcasts. They're all on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. Kevin does the BIA podcast. That's we dropped one of those in the Morning Scoop feed for you a couple days ago as a little bonus content, so you get to sample that, but you can subscribe to that. But you can subscribe to all of our great shows. Wherever you're listening to this, you can subscribe there as well. And if you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe there. YouTube.com/Buckeye Scoop. We'll actually have a little thing at the end of this video on YouTube that will have the Buckeye Scoop logo on the right-hand side of the screen. Just click on that. That will subscribe you to our YouTube channel. Then you get notified every time we do live pregame shows, live postgame shows, live interviews with Brian Day and the Buckeyes. Posted right after the game, posted the Carmen, Ohio video. People love that. Just all sorts of fun stuff like that, plus all the other pregame and postgame content and midweek content and podcasts. It's all there at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. All you have to do is subscribe, and you get notified every time we post a new show, so you never miss anything. It doesn't cost anything. You just get great content for free. Seems like a pretty good deal to me. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.